Do you know how to find out if you have had your private information stolen? Well, the odds are probably have had, but where was it stolen? When? What has been stolen? How about your password and how safe that password is? We're going to show you real hard evidence. Knowing whether or not your data has been stolen and what's been stolen is very important. And there is a service out there that you can go to. They don't charge you a thin dime, nothing. And you can right there find out which of your accounts has been compromised and end up on the dark web. Now, the dark web is the place that the criminals go. That's where they exchange information they've stolen. That's where they sell it. That's where you can buy a tool to do ransomware hacking all on your own for far less than $50. In fact, ransomware as a service is available where they'll do absolutely everything except infect people. So you just go ahead and you sign up with them. You pay them 20% or sometimes more commission. You get somebody to download and infect themselves with the ransomware, and they do everything else. They take the phone call, they find out what it is their company is doing, and they set the ransom, and they provide tech support for the person that got ransomed in order to buy Bitcoin or sometimes some of these other cryptocurrencies. In fact, we've got another article in the newsletter this week about cryptocurrencies and how they may be falling through the floor because of ransomware. We're going to talk about that a little later here. But here's the bottom line. You really want to know this. You want to know if the bad guys are trading your information on the dark web. You want to know what information they have so you can keep an eye out. Now, you guys are the best and brightest. You know you got to be cautious, or you wouldn't be listening today. And because you know you've been need to be cautious, you have been cautious. But the time you need to be the most cautious is right after one of the websites that you use has been hacked. Because the fresher the information, the more it's worth on the dark web. Your identity can be bought on the dark web for pennies, depending on how much information is there. If a bad guy has your name, your email, the passwords you've used on a few different websites, your home address, social security number, basically the whole shooting match, they can sell your personal information for as little as about $2 on the dark web. That is really bad. That's sad, in fact, because it takes you 100 or more hours. A few years ago, they were saying about 300 hours. Nowadays, it's less in order to get your identity kind of back in control. I suspect it probably is closer to 300, frankly, because you have to call anybody that pops up on your credit report. Oh, and of course, you have to get your credit reports. You have to review them closely. You have to put a freeze on your credit. Got an email this week from a listener whose wife had her information stolen. He had lost a wallet some years ago, and she found, because of a letter that came saying, "Hey, thanks for opening an account," that someone had opened an account in her name. Now, the good news for her is that it had a zero balance. They caught it on time, and because it was a zero balance, it was easy for her to close the account. And he's had some problems as well because of the lost wallet a few years back. So again, some basic tips. Don't carry things like your social security card in your wallet. Now, you got to carry your driver's license because if you're driving, the police want it. Although nowadays there's in some ways less and less of a reason to have that. But our driver's licenses, you might have noticed on the back, many of them have either a QR code or they've got a kind of a barcode scan on them. But that big QR code contains all kinds of information about you that would normally be in the online database. So maybe you don't want to carry a bunch of cash, although, cash is king, and credit cards can be problematic. It kind of depends. And the same thing is true with any other personal identifiable information. Keep it to a minimum in your wallet. But there is a place online that I mentioned just a minute ago that does have the ability to track much of the dark web. Now, this guy that put it together, his name's Troy Hunt. And Troy's an Australian. He's been doing this as a public service forever. He tried to sell his little company, but the qualifications for buying it included you will keep it free. And there are billions of people, or I shouldn't say people, there's billions of requests to his website about people's private information. So how do you deal with this? What do you do? Well, the website is called Have I Been Pwned? Have I Been, B-E-N, Pwned, P-W-N-E-D. Pwning is an old term that comes from these video games before they were online. And it means that basically I own you. I own all of your properties. You've been pwned. And that's what Troy kind of followed here. HaveIBeenPwned.com is a website that you can go to. Now, they have a whole bunch of other things. They have API calls for those of you who are programmers and might want to keep an eye out for your company's records, because it does have that ability as well. And it has tie-ins to some of the password managers, like 1Password, to be able to tell, is my new password any good? And which websites have been hacked? Does that make sense to you? So that is a very good thing, too, because if you know that a website that you use has been hacked, I would like to get an email from them. So the first thing right there on the homepage that you're going to want to do is click on Notify Me. So you enter in your email address. I'm going to do that right now while we're talking. They've got a reCAPTCHA. I'm not a robot, so go ahead and click that. And then you click on the button Notify Me of Pwnage. A lot of people are concerned nowadays about the security and safety of their information. They may not want to put their email address into a site like this. Let me assure you that Troy Hunt is on the up and up. He really is trying to help. He does not use any of the information that you provide on his website for evil. He's just trying to be very, very helpful. Now, his site might get hacked, I suppose, but it has been just a huge target of attackers. And because of that, he has a lot of security stuff in place. So once you put your email address right into the Notify Me box, click on Notify Me of Pwnage. Of course, you got to click the I'm not a robot. So once you've done that, it says it sends you a verification email. So all you have to do at that point, it's just like my website when you sign up for my newsletter, keep an eye out for an email from Troy from HaveIBeenPwned.com asking you if you signed up for his notification service. Obviously, it is a very good idea to click on his link in the email. Now, I caution you guys all of the time about clicking on links in emails because so many of them are malicious. But in the case of like Troy or my website or maybe another one that you sign up for, if you just signed up for it, you should expect an email to come to your mailbox within a matter of a couple of minutes, and then you should spend just that minute or so it takes to click on that email to confirm that you do want to get the emails from the website. Because if you don't hit that confirmation, you're not going to get the emails. Now, let me explain a little bit about why that is. Good guys on the internet don't want to spam you. They don't want to overload you with all kinds of emails that may matter, may not matter, etc., etc. They just want to get you information. So every legitimate, basic guy out there, business, organization, charity that is legitimate is going to send you a confirmation email. The reason is they don't want someone who doesn't like you, let's say, to sign you up on a few hundred different email sites, and now all of a sudden you're getting all of these emails that you didn't want. I had that happen to me years and years ago. And it wasn't sites that I had signed up for. In fact, some of them were rather pornographic, and they kept sending me emails all of the time. So Troy is going to send you, just like I do and other legitimate websites, send you an email with a link that you must click. If you do not click his link, you are not going to get the emails. It's really that simple. Now, Troy, looking at a site right now, has information on 11 billion pwned accounts, really. That is huge. It is the largest collection that's publicly available of hacked accounts. Now, we're going to talk about that a little bit more. And what information does he have? How does he protect it? What else can you find out from Have I Been Pwned? This is an important site, one of the most important sites you can visit in order to keep yourself safe. Well, next to mine, right? Make sure you visit right now, craigpeterson.com/subscribe, and sign up for my newsletter, and expect that confirmation email too. Have you been hit by ransomware before? Well, it is a terrible thing if you have. But what's the future of ransomware? Where is it going? We've talked about the past, and we'll start with that and then move into what we're expecting to come. The future of ransomware is an interesting one, and we kind of have to look at the past in ransomware. Ransomware was pretty popular in that bad guys just loved it. They still do, because it is a simple thing to do, and it gives them incredible amounts of flexibility in going after whoever they want to go after. Initially, they were sending out ransomware to anybody's email address they could find and hoping people would click on it. And unfortunately, many people did click on it. But back then, the ransoms were maybe a couple $100, and you paid the ransom, and 50% chance you got your data back. Isn't that terrible? 50% chance. So what do you do? How do you make all of this better, make your life better? Well, ransomware really drove up the value of Bitcoin. Bitcoin's ascension was largely based on ransomware because the bad guys needed a way that was difficult to trace in order to get paid. They didn't want the bank to just sweep the money back out of your account. They didn't want the FBI or other agencies to know what they were doing and where they were located. So what they did is they decided, hey, wait a minute now. This whole crypto game sounds interesting. And of course, talking about cryptocurrency game, because from their viewpoint, it was anonymous. So they started demanding ransoms instead of dollars, PayPal, even gift certificates that they would receive from you. They decided we're going to use some of the cryptocurrencies. And of course, the big one that they started using was Bitcoin. And Bitcoin has been rather volatile, hasn't it, over the years? And its founding was ethically empty, basically, what they did and how they did it. It's just disgusting again, how bad some people really are. But they managed to manipulate the cryptocurrency themselves, these people that were the early adopters of the cryptocurrency called Bitcoin. And they manipulated it. They manipulated people into buying it and accepting it. And then they managed to drive the price up. And then the hackers found, oh, there's a great way to do it. We're going to use Bitcoin. And so they demanded ransoms in Bitcoin. And they found that no longer did they have to get like a $100 gift certificate for Amazon. Now they could charge $1,000, maybe even $1 million or more, which is what we saw in 2021, and get it paid in Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin is kind of useful, kind of not useful. Most places don't take Bitcoin as payment. Some have started to because they see it might be an investment in the future. I do not use Bitcoin and I don't promote it at all. But here's what we've been seeing, and this is from the Chief Technology Officer over at Tripwire. His name's Dave Meltzer. What we've seen with ransomware attacks here and the tie to Bitcoin. WannaCry back in 2017 was terrible, and it destroyed multiple companies. One of our clients had us protecting one of their divisions, and we were using really good software. We were keeping an eye on it. In fact, in the 30 years I've been protecting businesses from cyber intrusions, we have never, ever had a successful intrusion. That's how effective we've been. And I'm very, very proud of that. Very proud of that. We've seen ransomware attacks come and go. This WannaCry ransomware attack destroyed every part of the company except for the one division we were protecting. And this is a big company that had professional IT people who really weren't very professional, right? How do you decide? How do you figure out if someone really knows what they're talking about, if all they're doing is throwing around buzzwords? All right, that's a huge problem for the hiring managers. But anyways, I digress, because having a particular series of letters after your name representing tests that you might have passed doesn't mean you're actually any good at anything. That's always been one of my little pet peeves over the decades, okay? But another shift in the targeting of ransomware now is showing a major uptick in attacks on operational technology. Now, that's a real big thing. We've had some huge hits. You think of what happened with SolarWinds and how it got into SolarWinds software, which is used to monitor computers, had been hacked and had inserted into it this one little nice little piece of code that let the bad guys into thousands of networks. Now we've got another operational technology hack in progress as we speak called Log4j or Log4Shell, which is huge. Right now, we're seeing 40% of corporate networks are right now being targeted by attackers who are trying to exploit this Log4j. So in both cases, it's operational software. It's software businesses are using as part of their operations. So and part of that is because we're seeing this convergence of IT, which is, of course, information technology and operational technology environments. And many times in the past, we've seen, for instance, the sales department going out and getting Salesforce or something else online or offline. They're not IT professionals in the sales department or the marketing department. And with all of these kids now that have grown up and are in these IT departments in their 30s and think, well, I've been using technology my whole life. I understand this stuff. No, you don't. That has really hurt a lot of bigger companies. And that's why some companies have come to me and saying, hey, we need help. We need some real adult supervision. There's so many people who don't have the decades of experience that you need in order to see the types of holes. So we've got the IT and OT kind of coming together, and they've exposed a technology gap and a skills gap that businesses are trying to solve right now in order to protect themselves. They're moving very quickly in order to try and solve it, and they've been pretty much unable to. Now, we use for our clients some very advanced Cisco hardware, software, and tools, because again, it goes back to the one pane of glass. Cisco doesn't really only have one pane of glass, but that's where it goes back to. And there's a lot of potential for hackers to get into systems, but having that unified system that Cisco offers really helps a lot. So that's kind of my little inside secret there. But we walk into companies that have Cisco and they're completely misusing them. In fact, one of these, what would you call it? Well, it's called a school administrative unit in my state, and it's kind of a super school board, super school district, where there's multiple school districts pulled together, and they put out an RFP because they knew we liked Cisco and what some of the advantages were. So they put out a request for proposal for Cisco gear, and lo and behold, they got Cisco gear, but they did not get it configured properly, not even close. They would have been better off buying something cheap and being still exposed, like, I'm not going to name some of the stuff you don't want to buy. Don't want to give them any airtime, as it were. But what we're finding now is law enforcement has gotten better at tracking the digital paper trail from cryptocurrencies, because cryptocurrencies do have a digital paper trail. And the bad guys didn't realize this at first. They're starting to now, because the Secret Service and the FBI have been taking down a number of these huge ransomware gangs, which is great. Thank you very much for doing that. It has been phenomenal, because they've been able to stop much of the ransomware by taking down these gangs. But criminal activity that's being supported by nation states like North Korea, China, and Russia is much harder to take down. There's not much that our law enforcement can do about it. So how does this tie into ransomware and cryptocurrency? Well, ultimately, the ability to address the trail that's left behind of ransom payments. There's been a massive shift in the focus from government trying to tackle the underlying problem of these poorly secured critical infrastructure sites. And that's what I did training for the FBI's InfraGuard program on for a couple of years. It has shifted. Now, we've got executive orders, as I mentioned earlier, from various presidents to try and tighten it up and increase government regulation mandate. But the big question is, should you pay or not? And I recommend to everyone out there, including the federal government recommends this, by the way, don't pay ransoms, because you're just encouraging them. Well, as fewer and fewer ransoms are paid, what's going to happen to Bitcoin? What's going to happen to cryptocurrencies? Well, the massive rise we saw in the value of Bitcoins will deteriorate, because we won't have businesses trying to buy Bitcoin before they're even ransomed in order to mitigate any future compromise. So I love this. I think this is great. And I think that getting more sophisticated systems like my company Mainstream does for businesses that I've been doing for over 30 years is going to drive some of these cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin down. No longer will the cryptocurrencies be supported by criminals and ransomware. So that's my hope anyways, and that's also the hope of David Meltzer, Chief Technology Officer over at Tripwire. Hope you're having a great year so far. You're listening to CraigPeterson.com. Sign up for my email at CraigPeterson.com, and hopefully I can help you have a little bit of a better year ahead. All of these data breaches that the hackers got are not created equal. So we're going to go through a few more types of hacks, what they got, and what does it mean to you, and what can you do about it. Have I been, B-E-E-N, pwned, P-W-N-E-D.com. And this is a website that has been put together by a guy by the name of Troy Hunt. He's an Australian. And it goes through the details of various hacks that he has found. Now, it's not just him. There are a lot of people who are out there on the dark web looking for hacks. And there's a few different types of hacks. And, of course, a lot of different types of information that has been compromised and gathered by the bad guys. And a stat just out this week is talking about how businesses are so easy to compromise. It is crazy. This was a study that was done by a company called Positive Technologies, and they had a look at businesses. Basically, they did white hacking of those businesses and found that 93% of tested networks, 93% of tested networks are vulnerable to breaches. Now, that is incredible. And according to them, in dark reading, it says the vast majority of businesses can be compromised within 1 month by a motivated attacker using common techniques, such as compromising credentials, exploiting known vulnerabilities in software and web applications, or taking advantage of configuration flaws. Isn't that something? In 93% of cases, an external attacker could breach a target company's network and gain access to local devices and systems. In 71% of cases, the attacker could affect the business in a way deemed unacceptable. For example, every bank tested by Positive Technologies could be attacked in a way that disrupted business processes and reduced their quality of service. It's a very big deal. And much of this has to do with the fact that we're not taking cybersecurity seriously as businesses or as government agencies. Now, the government agencies have been trying to pull up their socks. I got to give a handout to President Biden. He really started squeezing many of these federal contractors to get security in place. President Trump really pushed it, even back to President Obama, who pushed this fairly heavily. Now we're starting to see a little bit of movement. But how about the smaller guys? How about private businesses? What are you doing? So I'm going through right now some of the basic things you can get from Have I Been Pwned, and what you can do with all of that data, all of that information. What does it mean to you? So I'm looking right now at my business email address, which is craig@mainstream.net. Pretty simple, craig@mainstream.net. And I found, because this email address is about 30 years old, I've been using it a long time, about 14 data breaches and 1 paste. All right? So what does that mean? What is a paste? Well, pastes are a little bit different than a regular hack, all right? A paste is information that has been pasted to a publicly facing website. Now, there's many of them out there. There have been a lot of breaches of Amazon sites, of Amazon databases, Azure, all of these types of things. But what we're talking about here are these websites that are designed to allow people to share whatever they want. So, for instance, you might have a real cool program you want people to try out. You don't have the bandwidth to send it to them. You certainly can't send it via email because it's much, much, much too big. So sites like Pastebin are out there to allow you to go ahead and paste stuff in and share the link. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Well, these paste sites are also used by hackers to make it even easier for them to anonymously share information. And many times, the first place that a breach appears is on one of these paste sites. So Have I Been Pwned searches through these different pastes that are broadcast by a Twitter account called Dumpmon, which is a site where, again, bad guys are putting information out about dumps have been found, as well as good guys, all right? And they report in the Dumpmon Twitter account. If you're interested, it's at DUMPMON. They report emails that are a potential indicator of a breach. So finding an email address in a paste does not necessarily mean it's been disclosed as a result of a breach. But you should have a look at the paste and determine whether or not your account has been legitimately compromised as part of that breach or not, all right? So in my case, again, for the craig@mainstream.net email address, it was involved in a paste. So let me see what it says. So let me see. It shows it involved in a paste. This is paste title AAA from July 2015. So this is information's been published to a publicly facing website. I don't know if I click on that, what does it do? Yeah, okay. So it actually has a link to the paste on Pastebin. And in this case, it's gone, right? It's been deleted. Could have been deleted by the Pastebin staff. Somebody told them to take it down, whatever it is. But again, Have I Been Pwned allows you to see all of the information that has been found by the top security researchers in the world, including various government agencies, and allows you to know what's up. So let's have a look here at passwords. So if you click passwords at the very top, this is the other tool you should be looking at. You can safely type in the passwords you use. What Have I Been Pwned does is, instead of taking the passwords from these hacks in the clear and storing them, it creates a checksum of the password. So if you type a password into this, so I'm going to type in PASSWZ, let me use a better password, P@SSW0RD. One of the most common passwords on the internet, common passwords ever. Okay, so it says, oh no, pwned. This password has been seen 73,586 times before, okay? It says that the passwords previously appeared in a data breach and should never be used. If you've ever used it anywhere before, change it. You see, that's why you need to check your passwords here. Are they even safe to use? Because what the bad guys have done in order to counter us using longer passwords, because it's not the complexity of the password that matters so much, it's the length of the password. So they don't have enough CPU resources in order to try every possible password from 8 characters through 20 characters long. They could never do that. It would take forever in order to try and hack in. So what they do is they use the database of stolen passwords in order to try and get in to your account. Hey, I'm going to try and summarize all of this in the newsletter, so keep your eye out for that. And again, the only way you're going to find that out and get my summary today, including links to all of this stuff, is by being on my email list, craigpeterson.com/subscribe. That's Craig Peterson, SON.com/subscribe. Stick around. Did you know there is a site you can check your password against to see if other people have used it and if that password has been stolen? It's a really great site. It's called Have I Been Pwned, and we're going to talk about it more right now. You know, I've been doing cybersecurity pretty much as a primary job function here in my career for about, not since 92. So, my goodness, an anniversary this year, okay? 30 years. So, you're listening to a lot of experience here as I have helped protect some of the biggest companies in the world, the Department of Defense and military contractors, all the way down through our local dentist's office. So over 5,000 companies over the years. And I help perform what are called virtual CISO services, which are services to help companies make sure that they have their security all lined up. And we also have kind of a hacker audit, whether or not you are vulnerable as a business to being hacked. So we'll go in, we'll look at your systems. We can even do a little bit of white hat hacking in order to let you know what information is out there available about your company. And that's really where Have I Been Pwned comes in. It's a very simple tool to use, and it gives you some great information, some really good information about what it is that you should be doing, what is out there. I had a meeting with the FBI, one of my client sites, because they had been hacked, and my client said, yeah, go ahead and bring them in. And it turned out to be the worst infection that the Boston office of the FBI has ever seen. There were active Chinese backdoors in there, stealing their information, their plans, their designs, everything from them. Right there, right then. Oh, it was just incredible to see this thing. And it all started because they said they had an email problem. We started looking more closely, and we found some indications of compromise, etc. So it gets bad. I've been doing this for a long time. But one of the things that you can do, because I understand not everybody can do what we do. There are some very complicated tools we use and methodologies. But this is something anyone can do. Again, the site's called haveibeenpwned.com. You don't have to be a white hat hacker to use this. This is not a tool for the black hats, in other words, for the bad guys, for the hackers out there. This is a tool for you, whether you're a business person or a home user. And we talked about how you can sign up there to get a notification if your account has been hacked. So I'm going to the site right now, Have I Been Pwned, which is spelled P-W-N-E-D. Have I Been, B-E-E-N, Pwned, P-W-N-E-D.com. And I'm going to type in me at craigpeterson.com, which is my main email address for the radio show and others. So good news, it says no pwnage found. In other words, this particular email address has not been found in any of the hacks on the dark web that Troy has access to. Now remember, Troy does not know about every hack that's occurred. He does not know about every data breach that has occurred, but he knows about a whole lot of them. And I mean a lot. If you look on his site, right there on the homepage, you'll see the largest breaches that he knows about. For instance, 510 million Facebook accounts that were hacked. He has the most recently added breaches. We just got an addition from the United Kingdom, from their police service over there. But some of the more recent ones include Gravatar accounts. Gravatar you might have, it's very common. In fact, 114 million Gravatar accounts information were compromised. So me at Craig Peterson is safe. Well, let me check my mainstream email address. Now, mainstream.net is the website that I've been using for about 30 years now online. And this is the company that I own that is looking at how do we protect businesses. And we're a small company, basically a family operation, and we use a lot of different people to help out with specific specialties. But let me see, Craig at mainstream.net. This one's guaranteed to be pwned, all right? Because, again, that email address, Craig at mainstream.net, is close to 30 years old. Okay, so here we go. 14 data breaches, it says, my business email address has been involved in. 8 tracks back in 2017, and it says compromised data was emails and passwords. The Apollo breach in July of 2018. This was a sales engagement startup. Email address, employer, geographic location, job title, name, phone number, salutations, social media profiles. Now, you see, this information that they got about me from this Apollo breach is the type of information that they need in order to phish you. Now, we're talking about phishing, phishing, and the whole idea behind phishing is they trick you into doing something that you probably should not do. And boy, do they trick you into it, okay? So the data left exposed by Apollo was used in their revenue acceleration platform, and it's data that they had gathered. So that's phishing stuff. So, for instance, they know my company name. They know where it's located. They know what my job title is, my phone numbers, how to address me, right? Not my pronouns, but salutations, and social media profile information. Interesting, eh? So think about all of that and how they could try and trick me into doing something that really is against my best judgment, my better interest. Make sense to you? This big collection number 1 in January 2019, they found this massive collection of credential stuffing lists. So that's combinations of email addresses and passwords. It's the 773 million record collection. So what password stuffing is where they have your username, they have your passwords that are used on multiple accounts. Now, usually the username is your email address, and that's a problem. And it really bothers me when websites require your email address for you to log in as opposed to just some name that you make up. And I make up a lot of really cool names based on random words. Plus, I have 5,000 identities that are completely fabricated that I use on various social media sites or other sites where I don't care if they have my right information. Now, obviously, the bank's going to need your information. You can't give it to the fake stuff to law enforcement. You wouldn't want to anyways. But that's what credential stuffing is. They will use the email address that you have that they found online in one of these massive dumps, or maybe one of the smaller ones, along with the passwords they found that you use on those websites. And they will stuff them. In other words, they'll use them on a website. They will continually go ahead and just try different username, different password combinations until they get in. Now, that is a very, very big problem called credential stuffing. And that's why you want to make sure that you change your password when a breach occurs. And it isn't a bad idea to change it every 6 months or so. We'll talk more about this when we get back. But I want you to make sure you go right now, because we've got boot camps and other things starting up when just probably mid to late January. And you'll only find out about them at craigpeterson.com. Make sure you subscribe